and we'll be having the author of the book with us to discuss that book. And that is why it is a special edition, and we'll be doing this, inshallah. And the book we'll be reviewing, like we all know, is Blinding Realities. Yeah. So the book we'll be reviewing is Blinding Realities, Lasting Possibilities. And I want to believe that the book review team are ready for us to discuss this book with us. So firstly, I would like to recognize the presence of our grand mentor who is with us here, our able daddy, Alaji Engineer Nasir Giwa, who is with us here. And also, I would recognize the presence of the author of the book, who is also very much present with us here, Mr. Ridwanullah Idowu Abimbola. I must say that this book is actually a very interesting one, and from the moment I laid my hand on it, I found myself, reading the first. It's definitely a page turner, because I just continue reading, and until I finished it before I dropped the book. And I must say it's a very interesting and amazing book. So we have the brilliant author with us here, and he would also be reviewing the book with us. So for this book review session, it will be divided into two parts. The first part is where we have the panelists review the book. They will tell us, they will summarize the book and share insights from the book with us for the first 1 hour. And after that time, we would have the author's charts, where we discuss with the author to know more about the book. And it's always very interesting when you get to know the intent of the author for every of the chapter, and also for key messages in the book. So we'll be having the author's chart also after the book review session, and then we'll take questions, comments, and answers. So without wasting much of our time, because we want to be time conscious, without wasting much of our time, I would like to implore every one of us to share the message of the book review with our friends on our WhatsApp status and on the group chat, which also remind people to join the book session. We'll do that for the next 1 minute, and then I would hand over to the book review team. Let us quickly, bring out our phone and share the message to people. Let people join and let people come on board to this amazing book review session. All right. So you're welcome.
Abdusalam, you want to talk briefly about NGM for the benefit of the author and guests?
Oh yes, definitely. I would do that. It skipped my mind. So I want to welcome everyone of you once again to this month's book review session, and I would like to say a bit about NGM. NGM is the short form for Nurse Ogiwa Mentorship Platform. It is a mentorship platform for students as well as early and mid-stage career professionals. And in NGM, all we do is about developing ourselves. Every one of us, we develop ourselves, and we develop ourselves through different programs or different activities, and one of which is the book review session, the leadership, entrepreneurship, and innovative session. And annually we hold a conference called NGM Conference, where we bring out top industry leaders and professionals and experienced entrepreneurs to discuss trending issues that relates to the corporate world or the modern trend. And NGM is founded by our able father, our daddy, Engineer Nasir Giwa, who is presently the coordinator for Boa Refinery. Is a very experienced professional, and he is our daddy. He's daddy to every one of us. When they say somebody is Baba Omokekeke, is the father of all of us in NGM. And also in NGM we have other mentors who are Alhaji Nasir Giwa is the grand mentor. We have other mentors who are actually also top professionals in their field. We have Mr. Hanif Abbas, who is the CEO of Leonine Investments, Leonine Financial Service. We have Mr. Taiwo Kuye, who is the senior manager at KPMG. We have Salahma Aderionye, who is the CEO of an agribusiness, among other amazing mentors. Mr. Ibrahim Umar is the field engineer, and Mr. Dumajida Musa, and all various amazing people who are the mentors of NGM. And also among our mentees too, we have people who are doing exceptionally well in their career and in their various field. So NGM is that platform that develops people, and I am very, very proud to be a mentee in NGM, and I'm also the team lead for the book review session that we'll be having today. So I welcome you all, and I hope that for those of us that are not in NGM, you will be willing to join NGM very soon when our application is open. So thank you everyone again for joining. Thank you, Daddy, for NGM. We want to thank Daddy for NGM because that platform has played a lot, played a vital role in the life of many. So right now I will be handing over to the lead reviewer for this month's book. The book, like I've said earlier, is Blinding Realities, Lasting Possibilities. And the author is here with us to review the book and also to share more insights about the book. I will not be doing much of talking about the book yet until we'll be having the author's chat. So I would hand over to Omoni Fasasi to introduce the book and also to introduce the panelists. Over to you, sir.
Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The slide is not actually necessary, but let's move on from here. So yeah, my name is Omoni Fasasi, and I'll be leading the team, right? Not really leading, we're all colleagues doing the same, trying to achieve the same goal. Permit me to mention that Abdul Basit has taken about 5 minutes of my time. Lead reviewer is supposed to start for 2:05, but yeah, it's 2:09, but we have to move on. Alongside myself is Aisha Adebayo, Muhammad Aliu, Simbiat Oladapo, Habib Lawal, Muhammad Abdul Kadri. We'll be going through the beats that we can say, and I must say, aside the fact that this is a unique one, it's not that easy for you to review a book when the author is here, but we'll try our best to say the little we can from how we've seen your write-up. And I must say as well that it's quite insightful to see how you were able to draw the lines and connection and dot and your research. It's laudable. But to get straight to it, like Abdul Basit said, we'll be reviewing the book titled Blinding Realities, Lasting Possibilities by no other person but Ridwanullah Habimbola, who is on the call with us. So I would start my my session of the book, and I'll be reviewing chapter 1 and 2. And chapter 1 says, Tales of Mystery, Why My Heart Bleeds. Why this is quite interesting for me is because this chapter 1 talks about 5 areas. So it's talking about teens, right? But it linked it to teen birth, teen sex, teen abortion, teen pregnancy, and teen addiction. So before I proceed, please permit me to stop sharing my screen. I'm sure everyone have seen the agenda already, so we can move on. Stop sharing. Okay, cool. Yeah. So before I proceed, okay, I've done that already. So I'll just be reiterating. So the first thing that struck me about this book is how the author was able to tell his story, his friend, and so please, can someone else try to be admitting people so I don't get
Oh
distracted?
yeah, I'm doing that.
Thank you very much. So he told us the story of his friend, who is Rhoda. Apparently, Rhoda is not the actual name. There's a disclaimer, but yeah, Rhoda is just the scenario we are. Yeah, just the name he used in painting the scenario. And Rhoda was a very good friend of his, and she, how will I put it? Coincidentally, got into wedlock pregnancy. Yeah, pregnancy. Yes, that's the word. And how it happened was, we are all of us, we have body and flesh flowing through us, and she was in a relationship which he was aware of. That's and on this fateful day, or a day before the a day before she actually mentioned the case to him, he went to visit her because she was ill, and they were just gisting, talking, but he couldn't really say anything about. He could the thing about us, when I tell people, I say there's a lot behind this smile, right? There's a lot behind my own smile at the moment. There's a lot behind the smiles you see everywhere. There's also a lot behind the frown faces you see. But in his own case, he didn't even know what was going on. All he was just doing was consoling, or like, how are you? How is it going, and what that. Then the next day, she reached out to him and she asked, what is that thing that I would do that you would be so pissed and you would probably never even forget or forgive me on? And he mentioned, and I'll quote, he said, nothing aside from getting deflowered outside marriage. And unfortunately, that was the case for her. She was already pregnant. I think three months, 2 weeks in already. And I think she probably, when she got into to go to the medical guys, they were like, this one cannot live. You just have to live with it. Only if you want to kill the baby. And she had to accept her fate. And it was a very sad moment for her, because she was so sad. And when you do something and you're like, I can never forgive myself for this. So yeah, let's just move on from there. So that happened, and the reviewer just had to, sorry, not the reviewer, the author, which is Ridonula, had to console his friend Rodia, and like, okay, calm down, it has happened, and we just have to move from here. And I think it's something we all need to know as well. And I also learned something from this, like, yeah, something bad has happened, something you're not so comfortable with has happened, something that you frown against has happened, but you should also try to permit the person, because we are all humans. Blood and flesh flows through us. Yes, we can think that in certain cases we are the best, but I often say that it's only God's grace that helps you to live certain scenarios without doing what you're not supposed to do. So let's all try to be empathetic when we are with our friends, and when they do something that we frown against, let's try to calm them down and put things in place so they won't also go and commit suicide in the long run. So then he went ahead to talk about the teen sex, how a lot of how things are going in the current century that we have, which is the 21st century. He said, and I'll quote, more people are sexually active before marriage today than in the past, while more babies are born out of wedlock in the past 50 years than at any other time in history. There's a what do you call it to this, right? It was he quoted it from from an article, but just permit me to proceed without that. Then he also said a similar report from the United States National Estimates of Sexual Activity amongst adolescent boys and girls between 15 and 19 years found that about 42% of never married female teenagers, that's 4.3, and about 43% of never married male teenagers, that's 4.5, had sexual intercourse at least once before marriage. Quite sad. And you all bear witness that Islam frowns to this, which is why they say we should, if we know that we are getting to that stage, aside ticking all the boxes, we should also try to get married easily, so we would avoid fitna in any which way possible. And there's the other data bringing it down to Nigeria, right? 63% of adolescents have experienced sexual intercourse before 19 years. Some of the fractions represent young Muslim boys and girls, which is not unlikely. Do we keep quiet and let it slide? Do we gloss over it as a rite of passage of adulthood? What I would just say in this regard is, I think a lot of us frown from these kind of conversations, and I would also permit me to also say that our parents don't have this conversation with some of us in certain cases, which I think is necessary. I know some of us are fathers here, some of us are mothers here. I think it is essential you hold these conversations with your kid, as the author has said, that we shouldn't just let it slide. We shouldn't just think that it's a thing that happens. I will try to curb my kids from it. You can't curb your kids from it if you don't expose them to what is actually going on. If you don't let them see the bigger picture, let them make the decision themselves, and your guidance is going to help them to make the right decisions, because it is you exposing them to the good, bad, the wrong, the worst about all this that's going to help them, that's going to guide them through the right path, and with Allah as well. So the next thing is now the teen pregnancy and birth, which I also quote. They said, according to WHO, about 16 million adolescents girls between the age of 15 and 19 give birth each year. 82 of these pregnancies are unwanted, sadly. These numbers have been around for decades and have yet to disappear. So sad. Then let's now link it to the teen abortion. So permit the roadway, right? So we started with what? We started with the teen sex after I told you the story. Then we went ahead to talk about what? The teen pregnancy and birth. Then we are now talking about teen abortion. So he narrated a story here, and the story was about a lady called Muna. So Muna was also got pregnant out of wedlock, like his friend Rhoda. But in Rhoda, Muna's case, her parents, when your parents say, you, this young lady, you just have to go to school. No, when your mother says you just have to go to school. However, your father was of the opinion that you probably should go and learn work and get married afterwards. But the lovely mother was like, no, I want my daughter to go to school. I want her to learn. I want her to be educated. Like we say, varsity. But unfortunately, she was, after I think first year or second year, her pregnancy test came out positive. And she was like, I can't stand this. I can't go to my mother, neither can I go to my father and tell them that this has happened. So what she did was she terminated the pregnancy, sadly. And we are all aware that this is not something that is right. But it is something that happened in our own case. Then the author also mentioned about the teen addiction in terms of Australian pop scents and pornography. And in this case, it was us basically letting us know, and I'll quote here, among the respondents to the survey on the age of exposure to internet pornography, only a disappointing minority, 2.6% boys and 70.3% girls, reported not seeing online pornography before 18. When asked why they had to watch porn, 69.3% of boys and 16.8% of girls disclosed that they watched them for sexual excitement. Sadly, Then he also mentioned that at the end of the day, respondents were asked about their reaction to what they saw. It turned out that boys were significantly more likely to report feeling sexually excited. 80% of boys and 27% of girls. Sadly. But because my time is up, I will just stop here. But before I stop, I will say something. And what I would say is that we should all try to have this conversation with our kids. We all should look inward, right? I couldn't really go through the second chapter. I just went through the first chapter. Imagine, first chapter, 10 minutes gone. But I think what I could get from the second chapter in summary is that we all should try to have this conversation, think inward, look at things going around us. Yes, fitna is everywhere to a very large extent. So what are we doing to put things in place? How are we going about things? How are we going about our day-to-day lives? What are the things we're exposing ourselves to, our views to? And social media is there doing its own thing. A lot of people have been paid a lot of money, psychologists, to keep bringing the things you want to you, which is so sad, but it's the world we live in. So I pray Allah makes it easy for us and guides us through the right path and expose us beyond our imagination. Thank you. So I'll hand over to my next panelist. We can't hear you. You're muted.
Assalamu alaikum. So I'll be taking us through chapters 3, 4, and 5 of this book, inshallah. Okay, so I'll just start with go straight into it. So chapter 3, title is Puberty, Adolescence, and the New Truths. So basically what we're going to be talking about in this chapter is puberty, the period of adolescence, and one or two things about this time frame in the life of individuals. So puberty is that time, is a developmental stage in every individual's life where there are different changes. Basically, they are biological changes, behavioral changes, and social changes. At this stage in life, people undergo rapid physical growth, sexual maturation, and emotional changes. So in the book it said that the changes that accompany the sexual maturation have effect on young people's behavior and their self-concept. So it is at this point in time that young boys and young girls alike find out that they have romantic interest. They view the opposite sex in a new light. They have sexual urges. They have sexual, fantasies. Basically, at this point or at this stage in their lives. And adolescence is defined as that period of transition between, childhood and adulthood. So puberty usually, starts from around the age of 8 or 9, and can start maybe around age of 14 for some people. So it's like a range. It's usually different for different individuals, really. And okay, so there are different factors that come into really during this during these developmental stages rather, and one of which is hormones. So there are a lot of hormones now that are going into the growth, sexual maturation, and sometimes they have effect on the behavior that the individual has at this point in time puts forward. So now, in the light of Islam, there's a different view to what adolescence is, right? So in Islam now, puberty is seen as a landmark where you move from being a child to being an adult. So it means that under the lens of Islam, when you get to that age of puberty, you are viewed as an adult, and any of your actions that you take have consequences, right? So you are going to be punished for any transgression that you do, any good deeds that you do, you get a reward for it. So under the lens of Islam, puberty is a landmark, that shows that, okay, you move from a child to being an adult. So therefore, a mature child is responsible for his actions. Under Islam, puberty makes the individual liable to punishment for their transgression, like I mentioned earlier. And then what this put in place is that young Muslims know that, okay, for every action that I do, whether good or bad, there's going to be a reward for it. Or there's going to be a consequence, rather, whether a good consequence or a bad consequence. So that puts young Muslims to, what's the word now? It makes them to be conscious of everything that they do. So now, fine, there are hormones in play, there are a lot of factors in play, but then the Islam factor comes in that, you know what, I know that for every action I'm going to do, starting from this point in my life, there are going to be consequences for it. So that means I have to be sure or ascertained of what I'm going to do at this point in my life, right? Another point that was mentioned in the book was that is puberty happening faster? So before now, the age at which puberty starts usually higher, say about 13 years, 14 years thereabout. But scientists have found out that this, the age now is now getting lower than before. So you see children at the age of 8 already showing characteristics of puberty, that is, characteristics of being transitioned into an adult. So in this day and age, puberty is actually happening faster than it usually is. So now I've mentioned rather that puberty is that period of transition, right? So does that mean that children don't know about maybe sexuality or sexual content and all of that? Well, the answer is no, because in this day and age, with the advent of digital technology, with the advent of movies, music, and all of that, it is found out that even children below the age of puberty are now exposed to, sexual content. Like they have an idea of what sexuality is even before getting biologically to that stage of sexual maturation. So an example that the author gave in his book was about his 5-year-old cousin that could name 5 pretty girls in his neighborhood. It just cited as an example that a 5-year-old boy that should probably just be running around, playing, already could distinguish between, oh, this lady is beautiful, this lady is not beautiful. And then he also gave another example of his 5-year-old girlfriend, a 5-year-old girl that dubbed herself as his girlfriend. So that points us to the fact that what would make a 5-year-old boy or girl decide that, this is my boyfriend, this one is this lady is more beautiful than this other lady? So it's just boils down to the fact that kids nowadays are being exposed to sexual content, even in even in media content that's supposed to be appropriate for their age. So like they're being exposed to sexual content. And it moves me to the second chapter, which says that sex, a blinding reality of the 21st century. The first point in this chapter is that we live in a highly sexualized society. And I'm going to give a direct quote from Mufti Menk, which says that we are living in the dirtiest society. So basically, sexuality has been rigged into all forms of communication these days. Fine, we're Muslims, and then it's flouts our ethics that, okay, a lady is put in front of a skincare product or a beauty product, but you can still maybe accept that fact, right? Okay, maybe they are advertising it for the female folks. But what do we now say of products that are not even for females, let's say a male perfume, or even a crate of egg, and it's a scantily clad lady that is in front, advertising this, what's the word now? Making this advertisement. So it just goes to show that sex and sexual content has infiltrated every form of communication that we have these days. And one of the points that the author made is that sex sells. People want it and people buy it. So when all of these things are put in a sexual form, it makes people want to get it more. Now, this issue that we have found ourselves with did not what's the word now? This issue now wasn't like that. Let's say it wasn't like that before. In like the 20th century, like the author mentioned, in those days it was dishonorable to walk about scantily dressed. Like ladies were dressed covered from head to toe. Just showing your ankle already showed that, oh, this lady is an immoral lady. And even at that time too, little amorous exhibitions like hugging or kissing, as at that time was not allowed in open spaces or in theater or even in television. Television that now serves as like the main source of sexual content these days. There were guidelines, there were rules as at that point in time. There were guidelines and rules as at that point in time that prevented all of this from happening. The general principle of those of the rule that time stated that no picture shall be produced that will lower moral standards of those who see it. But the reverse is the case these days. For every content that you see, there's a 90% chance that one's moral standard will be lowered. So now, moving on to the next chapter, which says that sex education, how effective is the acclaimed solution? So the author is now saying that how do we, prevent all of this things from happening, coming down from the first chapter now, the teenage addiction, the teenage abortion, and all of that. So how do we now prevent all of these things from happening? So chastity education, where we preach abstinence, that staying away from sexual intercourse before outside the institute of marriage is not is not allowed, it's not permissible rather. And then basically that's just what the author puts forward as like the main solution. But he says that there are some drawbacks to this solution. What's the drawback? The reason being that because of the fact that we are in a hyper sexualized society, we said people should abstain from sexual intercourse outside the constraint, outside the institute of marriage. But then that same individual you're telling to abstain is freely intermingling with opposite sex, doesn't lower his gaze, watches a lot of sexual content on the TV, on the internet, and all of that. It's going to defeat the purpose of that, because even if he's staying away, all of those things would push him, or her towards what we are trying to avoid. And then also in this day and age, again, abstinence is not seen as an effective means because of all of these factors that I have mentioned. So what is now put forward is the use of contraception. But now the problem with that is that contraception is not 100% effective method of preventing all of these consequences, like maybe unwanted pregnancy or illegal abortions and all of that. So it still happens, like according to research that the author penned down, all of these things still happen. So all of these things still happens. And then what how do I put this now? So sorry. Okay, so my time is up. Okay, so just the end, what's the word now? The end. So just wrap up my talk. I'll just give like a quote from the book where the author says that it is simply logical that no amount of abstinence is better, will make significant sway on any mind that consumes enormous amounts of sexual content every day. So this is just a brief summary of chapters 3 down to 5. Now, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. So I'll be taking us through chapter 6, and chapter 6 is basically where the author spoke about some of the possibilities, specifically 5, one of which is blocking the means, the second is piety-focused parenting, the third is reviving moral and cultural values, fourth being reinstating chastity education, and the fifth being early marriage. So in the opening summary of chapter 6, the author made mention of how he made mention of how the highlighted challenges which Omoni and Aisha have spoken about, how those challenges are not known to some parents, or how young people possess knowledge and awareness that their parents often do not realize, and they think that these young persons or young ones do not know as much as they are thinking, and young people know more than they imagine. So one of the first possibility is suggested was blocking the means, which emphasized the need for prevention over cure, as seen in some of the Islamic teachings in the Quran and the Hadith, and some of the things we've learned from the Prophet and his companions. So, in blocking the means, he spoke on how lowering one's gaze or lowering the gaze is like was the first he mentioned as a means to avoid some of those things that has been mentioned earlier. And how does this come to play? What you see directly speaks to your heart, and to avoid that, we need to protect our eye from some of these things. And one of the ways is to also avoid indiscriminate intermingling between sexes, which is common in today's society, especially in our schooling environment, where co-education is the practice, and you find in schools students of opposite sex intermingling without losing the shyness that existed before then, all in the name of socializing and the likes. So the author suggested how one of the ways we can solve this to be having the boys being taught by male teachers and the female being taught by female teacher, which research has also shown that is a better way for this. He made some research that showed that female students that are being taught by female teachers and male students being taught by male teachers do better than when they are being taught together. And this is evidence in one of the work done in two countries he mentioned. So I'll move on to piety focused parenting. Piety focused parenting just talks more on how parents need to be conscious in instilling the teachings of Islam, especially instilling Allah's consciousness in children, which is very vital towards guiding them towards decency during challenging time. You would agree with me that at each point in time when someone wants to do something wrong, there's a part of you that talks to you that this is right, this is wrong. So if at the early age, children are equipped with knowledge of Allah's consciousness, they tend to be able to fight these challenges during trying times. So why is this important to cultivate piety in children? We must consistently educate children about Islam and the consequence of disobedient acts like zina. Why? Because whenever these things happen in environments where there's fitna everywhere, there's fitna in the television, almost everywhere you turn to, you see fitna. Children now needs to know more about these things and how they affect them, because when you try to say this is what you must do without letting them know some of these things, they tend to want to fight back and sometimes become rebels when it comes to these things. He also mentioned the story of Prophet Yusuf, which exemplifies how innate piety and fear of Allah empowered Prophet Yusuf to resist temptation during his time. And these are some of the examples that we should be learning from as parents. So he gave an example stating how schools and parents have more work to do. And this is because school environments have programs on sex education where they teach where they don't teach preventive measure, or they rather teach people how to stay safe, which is not what Islam has taught us. Islam has taught us to take preventive cautions so that it doesn't even get to the point of happening at all. It only happens in the prescribed manner. So that's what the piety-focused parenting spoke about. Reviving moral culture and value is that section of the book majorly spoke about how our cultures and value respect chastity. That's the Islamic culture and value respect chastity, and how modesty is part of the Islamic faith. He also he also talked about how virginity is still honorable, and asked a question of whether men should also be virgin. And here he spoke largely on the fact that we focus more on the female side of we focus more on females saying you must be virgin, da da da, and we don't tell that to the males. And in the actual sense and in our Islamic teachings, we have been taught that this it doesn't work without the other. So both male and female should be virgin. And one of the how some of the ways we to teach children or teach ourselves to stay virgin till marriage for those that are not is through some form of affirmations, self-assertive affirmations, such as I would get married a virgin, I shall preserve my chastity within and outside marriage, and the likes. So this chapter basically talked about some of the values, some of the cultural values, looking at some of the past events and some research to say that these are what is required in order to revive our cultural and moral values. And it's so everything that has been said links to one another, and this also links to the next one, which is reinstating chastity education. Like I said earlier, in today's in today's society, when you hear sex education, what you largely find there is people teaching people how to use contraceptive, how to use some of how to use things that are tagged protection. So the author mentioned how this is not the Islamic teaching, and we need to start. He highlighted 11 different about 17 different ways we can do this through what he called the recommended comprehensive puberty / chastity education pack. And in this pack, he highlighted the importance of taking youngsters through this pack, in the sense that you are educating them on the major reasons why it shouldn't happen before the prescribed time, and recommended ways to abstain or stay away from these things. Then he also talked about what age puberty education or sex education should begin. So this is relative, as it's sort of need-based, because we are aware that the age for puberty is sort of not a static one, and sometimes you want to even start when you see children trying to explore some of these things, and you want to curb it by policing them in a way that does not make them become stronger in trying to do this, rather in a way they feel safe. Then the last part of chapter 6 is early marriage, and he mentioned one of the parts that stood out to me was where the author mentioned how when you talk about early marriage, when you talk about the Islamic way of marriage, you find that other set of persons who do not agree tend to feel that we are being extreme in our views of this, in our views of people marrying early, and in the actual sense, this just helps curb some of the issues that was highlighted earlier. So the opening quote is a quote from the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that says that for those who love each other, nothing has proven as good as marriage. Then it continued by saying, for marriage is more efficient, for marriage is more effective in lowering the gaze and guiding chastity. So this chapter just largely talked
Muhammad,
about
so your time has elapsed. Yeah, we
how
can close out there. Thank you. So I think now is there's supposed to be an icebreaker. So Aisha, are you up? Abdulbasit, kindly proceed, please, for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so Aisha is not available, but then I would step in for her. And basically, what we want to know is, okay, yeah, let's just chill out and sip in the lessons from the first three um, uh, reviewers, first three sessions that we've had. And I want to know what we have learned so far. If anybody is willing to share, kindly just you can unmute yourself or use the chat box. Okay, yeah. Mubarak, please. You have the mic.
Yeah, I think the biggest learning for me was from chapter one, which is like highlighting the extent of this problem. I never imagined um that the problem is so pervasive when it comes to exposure to pornography and exposure to teenage sex. For example, the one that said almost all, how many percent? I've forgotten the exact percentage. I think it was like over 60% of people already had sex before the age of 19. And I'm like, wow, I I never imagined it is that bad. So I think this also will affect the level of peer pressure, because if you're a teenage person at that age, even if you want to remain safe, it it means that most of the people that you're hanging out around will usually be involved in it, or unless you are maybe among the Muslims and stick you stick to friends that have similar core values. So I think that's another learning that we can take from it, the importance of keeping a good company. And I think in terms of sex education, this is something that should also be part of it. So yeah, I think that's something I've learned. I've learned more than that,
All
so let me not take all the time.
right. Thank you very much for that concise for to the next reviewers. Okay, Atia Yekin said prevention is better than pure money is an exclusion. Rashid said in the book yeah. So more importantly, I think the book is here to correct what the society has seen as norms, and it's actually a very sad thing to read through and see some stories. Of course, we are humans, we make mistakes, but then yeah, it is sad to see some stories. And one of the things that keep recurring in my mind is that we need to keep up with Islamic values and ideals, and more importantly, we need to look for ways to abstain from anything relating to opposite sex, except we want to get married. And talking about married, a pretty number of us here are single, right? But then I think it will be one of the discussions with the author. Yeah. Is there any other thing that anybody wants to say? Lessons from the past review so far?
No, I think we can
Okay.
use the chat box subsequently.
Yeah.
Kindly, let's
Please.
go to the next part, please.
Yeah,
Simbiat, you can go on.
yeah. Over to the next review.
Assalamu alaikum. I'll be discussing with us chapter 7 and 8. Chapter 7 is basically about dealing with young people's emotions. And for me, the chapters chapter is saying, chapter is putting more pressure on parents, how we can be intentional about our parenting, and also focusing more on both parties instead of, because we see most people nowadays, they focus their parenting more on the female gender rather than both. So the book is trying to tell us how better we can focus more on both parties rather than focusing on one person, and how to deal with young people's emotion, because at their age, especially the teenage age, they have a lot of things they want to explore, they want to discover a lot of things. If we are there as parents, to be able to cope some things and guide them, all right. So basically, we know in Islam we are all shepherds, like we all account for our I don't know how they say it, but we all account for our words one day, and our children are trust on us. So we need to just try our best, or do everything we can do to guide them right, so that when we are giving account to Allah, we'll be satisfied and Allah will be happy with us in the end. So the first thing is in dealing with teenagers, parents need to live up to their responsibilities. There are a lot of responsibilities that comes with parenting. Parenting is it's not just about giving birth, giving them name. Like, we have a lot of responsibilities right from that very birth age. So when they now move down to the teenage age, from 10, 11, 12, 13, they tend to want to explore a lot of things because they are being exposed, they go to school. And the author is making us know that that age is a promising age. It has a lot of advantage if we are there as parents to guide them right. The author made example of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, saying that at age 12, he started his trading business. He started his trading business at age 12. He made mention of another scholar, a popular scholar of Hadith we know. So also the author of Sahih Bukhari, started his learning and his interest at age 10 as well. So he's telling us that age, teenage age, is an age where our teenagers want to discover a lot of things about themselves. They'll be exposed to different things due to the fact that they attend school and they see people, they interact with people. So they want to know and do things and try out things. So as parents, we need to be there to guide them, to protect them, and let them know that, okay, these things you are doing are right and these are not right. So another thing the author is saying here is every teenage love infatuated? Saying that is every teenage love infatuated? From the book, the author is saying that there's no one side to it, but a conclusion was made due to his own personal experience he shared in the book, whereby he had during secondary school, while he was in secondary school, he had some experience with two lovebirds. They were young. I think the lady was age 10, and the boy was between age 14, 15. So they were really having an affair, like not like affair, like they were really like boyfriend and girlfriend relationship kind of. And in the long run, as at the time the author was writing this book, they were married and happily married. It means that their teenage love led to marriage, and to an extent they are happily married. So it is not all all teenage love that lead to marriage in some cases, and in some cases they lead to marriage. For some, they'll be happily married, and for some, it will be another story entirely. So another thing the author is making us know in the book is parents need to get involved with respect to their affairs of their children, and parents' knowledge of whatever their teenagers do is very important, because some parents are always being indifferent about the teenage love. They will tell you like it is not something important. Even some parents know their children do some certain things, but they don't tend to curb it, so they leave them to do whatever they are doing. So I don't under the fact that they are young and they can start a relationship. That is for some parents. But trust me, the teens will do it secretly. So for some things, they do it secretly, and by doing so, they tend to engage in some illicit acts by having some romance, sexual intercourse, and all. For some things, it leads to unwanted pregnancies. And with the fact that parents are not so close to their children, they are not aware of what they do. So So it makes it seem like they'll be scared to like tell their parent that mommy, I'm pregnant. They'll be so scared. So it leads to abortion, and abortion is complicated, can be complicated in the sense that when you're not doing abortion in the right way, because abortion can come in different ways. I think some professionals do it for some reason, for some people, maybe due to their health or something. But these people, they do abortion in the wrong way, whereby they meet quack doctors, they help them abort it, and for some it leads to death or affect their body in the future. Another thing the author is trying to make us know is that dating haram. Dating is haram because there's no other name for it. Dating is haram. Islam does not allow any relationship that is not done the right way. And the only relationship that can exist between a man and a woman that can lead to having other affairs like sexual intercourse, romance, and all. The only relationship is when you are getting married. That is when you are married and you are pronounced as husband and wife. So dating is not something that is allowed in Islam. It is not allowed. It is haram, and whatever comes out of it is not permissible. Then the author tried to also explain the halal courtship, saying that when a man finds a woman with good attributes, you want to get married. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just summarize the chapter 8. Chapter 8 is basically talking about marriage, getting married, early marriage, and saying that early marriage, the author asked a question about early marriage, and he said some people will be like early marriage is overrated, and some people will be like it is not. But really, early marriage is not overrated. Early marriage is good, although for some people it has a lot of advantages that it brings to them. And even Allah has said that whoever intend getting married with sincere intention is going to bless the marriage. And if the person does not have a lot of means, is going to provide means for the person. So early marriage is advisable, although there are some hindrances that could cause some people for not wanting to get married early, because we have different priorities. At some point in time, some people want to achieve this, some people want to achieve that. So sometimes it affects them wanting to get married. And some people, when they are ready to get married as well, they face some challenges. So the author is trying to tell us that for people, we have different causes for not being inside marriage. And the author also mentioned that other people should try to caution themselves with the rate at which they question people. When are you going to get married? When are you doing this and all? It is not a good question, actually. It is not a good question. It does not help those people, because we don't know what they are going through emotionally. It does not help them. For some people, they could have been through heartbreak, or maybe their partner was not the right partner at some point. They had to just stop the relationship, and they are not okay with it. Then you're not asking them questions that when are you going to get married? When are you going to do this? To make them remind that occurrence, which is not good. So we should just try and ensure we limit the way we ask people questions. Rather, we should just pray for them or advise them with respect to relationship generally, or pray for them. And finally, the author also made mention of fasting, as if you are not ready to get married, if you don't have the means, fasting, Islam has given fasting as an option. So for people that are not ready to get married, that don't have the means, they should continue fasting and be hopeful in Allah that Allah will make it easy for them. But rather than engaging in illicit relationship or having a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it's better you fast than doing others. So thank you.
Yeah, Jazakumullah khairan Simbiat for that wonderful presentation. So because of time, I'm going to be very fast and precise. So I'll be reviewing chapter 9 to chapter 11. Now, we have stomping the barriers to early marriage. Over the years, barriers to early marriage has been created the same way we have caused these blinding realities. So now, to scrape all these obstacles and barriers, we have to look back in the past to see how we might have accidentally created them and be ready to rectify them. But bear in mind that we cannot solve this problem with the same level of thinking that created them. This time, we need to think simultaneously with the mind and hearts, and not one before or after the other. Now, it's quite understandable that parents, teens, and society are curious about how young ladies and gentlemen, 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 how how young ladies and gentlemen will flourish under this new order. The proposal seems like a big deal, whereas the answer is simpler than one might think. Now, the supposedly challenging question about this new norm has been reportedly answered by life and time. It turns out that anytime there is a new need, like there is a need for societal change or revolution, the world finds a miraculous way of shifting and adapting to it. Our creation has been imbibed with so much adaptability that we adapt to any situation, no matter how unbelievable it is. Have we forgotten how awkward it was then to be homosexual decades ago? Well, we know how normal it's such an abomination has become now in this present time. Was virginity not regarded as couples decades ago? Has now become a mirage overnight. So all these things we in a way find ways to adapt to it. Now, if we have learned anything from our vast knowledge of sociology, history, and anthropology, is that we humans create culture and that no culture is sacrosanct or eternal unless man wishes it to be. So somehow we created everything we see today as abnormal, and tomorrow, if we so wish, we can replace this from rooted abnormalities. And yes, we can, but it's going to take a few steps to achieve this. It takes education, dialogue, persistence, and acceptance. If we understand or if we observe how sexuality and how homosexuality and other traditional aberration has progressed over the years, we will understand how fickle societal norms could be. Which brings us to the very point of this that nothing is lasting except what is being reinforced, except what the society accepts as true. That's only what's going to be lasting. So now, for that matter, embracing early marriage as a lasting possibility to the blinding realities will not be an anomaly for long. Like every other social revelation, good or bad, the world will eventually understand and embrace it. When the few ones that are doing it keep it up, do it right, and do it with pride. So our aim here is to push early for early marriage, drawing on our countless experience and the fact that early marriage seems to be lasting alternative. So now, subsequently, it begins to appear that we have different categories of young lovers in our times now. So one, we have the footloose. So these categories prefer to love and date in secret instead of going through the right process of informing their parents about their feelings. These categories of young people simply want to love but are not ready to commit as a result of facts of dirty life and fictitious lifestyle they have been exposed to in movies and romance novels. So they either want to love sincerely and not get committed, as in marriage, or simply want to catch the fun of being in a relationship. They do not want a serious emotional commitment. Dating for merely dating's sake. Hook up, we all know hook up now. It's now a strange norm that's gaining swift acceptability among teenagers and young adults. A good number of people date just to pass time, and some, and very few, are looking for a very real commitment. On the other hand, we have the eager beaver. So, um, what these people do is that they want to do it the right way, but they don't have the guts to declare their love. They like to feel cool, but are reluctant to have a cold but while some others are not sure whether the love they have found is not so early to last them a lifetime. So these are the ones who need intervention of matured mind to help them interpret whatever impulses they might be feeling. So now, if we look at these two categories, the footloose and the eager beaver, you can't blame any of this. Well, let's take out the footloose now. You can't blame them. Why? Because they might not know that perhaps that they are sinning. Yes, they might not know. They do not understand how detestable this act is and how disgusted Allah is with such an unholy alliance. So, poor understanding of the correct teaching of Islam is the greatest factor of people's enlightened ignorance and satisfactory transgression. Beyond the religion and moral implication of their actions, they may be ignorant to the enduring effect of multiple romantic partnerships before marriage and know how sinful that is. So, as for those who have done it the right way, but they have the chicken guts. We got to understand that these feelings that they have, it's a very reasonable thing, and we cannot sit. Besides that, we cannot sit this feeling for them. So, beside the widening gap between the families, especially between parents and their kids, is another factor that should have much play. So most parents, both father and mother, are seldom available to listen and to guide their sons and daughters through life stage and their new experiences. They leave these poor kids to no other option but to seek advice from culinary friends on what to do with their feelings.
Sorry, Abib, can you be a bit more audible, please?
Oh, all right, okay. Now we talk of maturity, like what went missing in maturity. Now, it's a popular belief that maturity accompanies age. There is a significant correlation between chronological age and mental age and social emotional maturity. Now, in mathematical balance, we might say maturity is not a direct function of age. We have old fools as well as young sages. So maturity is a product of subtle salient factors. It goes beyond age, behavior in adolescence and across lifespan. So it's a function of a multiple interactive influence, including gene, parenting, exposure, socioeconomic status, individual agency, and psychological well-being, and all above relationship and then interaction. So hence, maturity is a multiple factorial as well as individual experiences. Kids today are doing a lot of smart things that's way beyond our chronological age. They're exhibiting traits and making exploration that puzzles us greatly. But sadly today, this kid smartness is exclusively turned towards academic and technology. Many of them are poor in social relation and have scant knowledge of basic morality, courtesy, and universal ethic. All right, if ages of 17, 18 years were successfully married in the past, why are today's 20 something boys and girls deemed seems unanimously deemed unfit for marriage? The answer lies in society that has accidentally dematured. Now, if you could remember, like I don't know, maybe not many of us, let's say historically, young boys and girls were getting emotionally and socially mature at the same time they experienced physical and sexual maturity. Because children had equal parenting and a high level of social presence and participation. In those days, an average child was parented by the whole community. Also, parents had more time to instill gender roles in children because boys and girls spent their days in the midst of adults. In contrast to today, owing to changing of work patterns and pressure, parents spend less time at home, which caused a damaging reduction in occasions of family meals, as well as reduced or fewer opportunities for adolescents to learn and gain skills through participating in family life. So what we parents should do is to try as much as possible to spend more time with our children, to know their feelings and teach them these ways of moralities, courtesies, and universal ethic. Now, sustenance is the rubric, not wealth. Money is wanted by everyone. We all want money. We have desires to fulfill as well as many needs to be met. We don't want to wear nice clothes, eat nutritious food, and all do all these lovely things. It's this urge that fulfills our desires for luxury and drive us to work more, earn more, and aspire to be more. We do all these things unrestrictedly, and still, no man has ever been reportedly to possess all his heart desires. If he was able to have all his heart desires, then he probably died of one or more or one or many worries in his head. I mean, sorry, his heart. But the upshot here is that there is no Mr. Have It All. No one has it all. Allah is the provider and sustainer and has given us his words on this, and yet we feel insecure, we feel unassured. He the exalted says that, and marry the unmarried among you, and the righteous among your male slaves and female slaves. Should they be poor, Allah will enrich them from his bounties. And Allah is all encompassing and knowing. So do not be afraid to go into marriage, lest your faith in Allah is weak. So now, as we parents, we fear to approve our words for marriage on financial ground. Yet we do not feel incapacitated to host a lavish party for them when they eventually meet our terms. So why not bless them and set them up for financial stability instead of lavishing resources irresponsibly? Now, so I'll go to the next one, which is the social support. So our greatest success here lies in helping young people transition into a decent economic and lasting marital life. So now there's social support that we can offer. So one, we have the pregnancy assistance fund, and we have the family assistance fund. So the pregnancy assistance fund, that's the PAF, is authorized by Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act towards competitive grants to states and tribes to assist by developing and implementing services to improve the educational, health, and social outcome for expectant and parenting teens, women, father, and families. So while this program is undoubtedly commendable, I recommend it as it reduces rate of abortion among young people and guarantees that social welfare of pregnant and parenting teenagers. It would have been better if the project was subjected to, like, if it was spent more on supporting intended couples and not accidental unions, because it's better to support them to have a decent intentional marriage than to compensate them for a sudden matrimony. So we also have the family assistance fund. So Allah enjoys Muslims to help one another in a righteous or pitiful way, so not to sin in transgression. Should we wish to build a supportive atmosphere for these kids, we Muslim community can create an endowment fund for this noble purpose. Better still, parents can take this upon themselves. They can support new families in cash or kind. It may be a job offer for young people who are considering Nikai and striving for a dignified way to support their families, instead of waiting till the kids complete a higher levels of education before hosting a lavish party for them. So why not set them up for a comfortable future instead? We should be more concerned about helping them achieve a convenient life after marriage than to talk or buzz about the plans to generate with an elaborate party. Rather than choosing to make impressions which only last for a short while, we can choose to make an investment that will last them a lifetime. So this way, we will have made an enduring charity through them, and we hope by doing this, Allah will continue to reward us. Inshallah. Amen. So, what's for the youths? So, this period is your prime. So, set your priorities right, tame your desires, keep the
Hi,
companies of the
Habib.
righteous
Time
people.
up, please.
One more minute, please. Keep the companies of the righteous people. Remember that you are who you walk with. A man is on a religion of his friends. Protect your innocence like gold and cherish your chastity with rubies. Do not take advantage of others and never allow yourself to be fooled. If you see that you are genuinely in love, and ask yourself if you are ready for this task. If duties, frustration, this task is duties, frustration, and challenges. If you say yes, well, ask yourself if you're ready to be a father. Will you still love your spouse in the next 10 years? Are you sure he or she is who you want to? If it is yes, then you can do more. If you mumble no, why not get busy answering those questions so that you do not become the next frustration to someone's son or a monster to someone else's daughter? So the end point is that marrying early is more about embracing responsibilities than it's about running from temptation. So to be married means to be responsible to another person, either as husband or as wife. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Habib, for taking your time to really go into the details of the book. Jazakumullah khairan for that. So my turn. I would just be concluding on the book and also try to move through reviewing the last two chapters of the book, which is chapter 12 and 13. And I hope you stay with me once more. Jazakumullah khairan to everyone for staying on the call. and for your patience thus far with with us, and hope you are enjoying the review so far. Okay, let me just get into it. So we've been having conversation, we've been having pop-ups about adolescence, parenthood, and the inhibitions of the sexual tendencies in youth, and the how to avoid them, and the blinding realities amongst them. And I will just conclude on that, because and that is the idea here, because so I'll just save us time to keep going on and on about things that we are that we see around us every day, and things that we are constantly either fighting against or trying to pray to Allah to guide us uh, to the right part of it. And some of us are doing istiara to find that right partner for ourselves, right? And we've seen, in recent times, especially in the last 2 years, the influx and the rate at which a lot of people are getting married. And to some, it's also like it's an unspoken concern. It's something of joy, and but it's also a trend that we've seen a lot of people get married in the last few years. Amongst this marriage, we've seen some successes so far, and some that have broken down in just amounts of months or weeks even. And it begs the question of, what are we doing right? What are we doing? What is going on? What is right about these marriages? What is wrong about these marriages? And some of them will been addressed as part of the blinded realities in this book. And that's the idea when it says that marriage should be the last thing, should be the last step of the solution, because different people, different realities, and different solutions to their needs. And one major part that we don't talk about in this whole construct are the parents. And and this book really delves into the role of the parents in the lives, in the making of the decision, in the decision making process, right? And things like your children, and like, so now let me just direct my how I put it, to everyone really, because like ultimately we either are in the process of seeing someone that we hope to build a future with. We are currently married, and some of us are hopefuls, like Omoni and co, that are still searching and hoping to, find the right person. I mean, and thank you for pointing that out. Muhammad Aliu and Mustafa Odusi, the hopefuls in the house. So if you have someone for them, you can reach out to them. So yeah, moving to my point. First of all, to those who are married, congratulations to you. To those who are now parents, congratulations to you. And to those who are wishful thinkers, I hope you find the right people for yourselves. So now, my what I'm trying to drive at here is simple. We all, at some point, had quarrels with our parents, or some of us didn't really have the experience to get the attention that we desired from them on some things or on some other things. Some of us did not even have the opportunity to meet our parents at all, right? And as we now grow older to become parents ourselves, we keep it keep popping up about, I want to be the father I wished I had, or I want to be the mother I wished I had. And the traits that we see there are simple. You want to be able to have the difficult conversations with yourself. Someone that can have the difficult. You're looking for someone that could have the difficult conversation with you. Someone that is approachable to you, that you could share your thoughts, share your emotions with, so that you can get ideas on how to manage them better, or how to process them better. And this is what a lot what this book also talks about, and the role of the parent in the decision making. And it starts talking about how children are people fall in love. It's not necessarily just talking about children, because in the sense that there are no rules of engagement when we're talking about interacting with with a partner. Let me put it like that. Or okay, with the opposite gender, right? And there are no rules of engagement in this thing. It's like, because we are seeing nowadays trends of even primary school children starting to talk about it, that they like someone, they want someone to be their girlfriends. At primary school age, we've seen, we've seen people at adolescent age that they push it to like that don't realize these emotions until they start seeing changes in their body. And we've seen people that until they get a PhD, before they start opening up the conversation of I like someone and I want to start interacting with the opposite gender. Different people, different rules of engagement, different reasons for this, and different level of how I put it, exposure causes this. It could be that the primary school child that is trying to find love is lacking the emotional attachment at home and is looking for where to pour, his feelings into and other things. And then where he seeks it is that okay, he needs to find someone out there that can be a counselor to him or a comforting, a safe space for him, for he or she, right? And these are things that we have to talk about when we talk about I want to be a better father or a better mother to my children. The question is, are you open to become someone that can have those difficult conversations with your child? Are you someone that is going to pay attention, be present, and be in the moment when your children are going through different changes of life? Is it the adolescence? Is it when they are at puberty? Are you there when they are at puberty and going through these changes of mixed emotions, trying to withdraw themselves from the public and trying to really understand what is going on in their own lives and what is going on in their own body? Are you and those emotions or those mixed feelings into things that actually are beneficial for them, right? And that's also the part that this book talks about. And to a large extent, the book focuses on the relation on how your children process this feeling as it relates to chastity and the sexual tension that comes up in during when we are processing these feelings. And then it talks about different ways and the parents handle it. Some parents are just indifferent about it because they believe that during their own time, they didn't really get the sexual education in school or through their parents, and they have to deal with it based on their understanding of the deen. And because you have going to madrasa, you have some understanding of the deen and how some of these things interact. You're going to Friday, so you listen to khutbah on Friday, you go to tafsir once in a while or during Ramadan, and you hear the imam talk about these things. So you're like, they are also exposed to this information, so they should be able to internalize those speeches and know how to hold themselves or interact, or basically know the rulings about this, how to find the answers they seek for when they are trying to. Some people, that's like the indifferent side of it, but that might not necessarily be the case for everyone. We have different people with different levels of deen and different understanding of how to engage when it comes to things that partake to them and Islam. And that's where the parents come in, because like you are the bridge, you are the gap, you are the bridge between your child and the world. And that should be the case. You should really own up to that role in and helping them really manage their emotions. And also, like, there's a conversation of like, how do you as a parent handle those conversations? How welcoming are you to even holding those conversations to your child? Like, if your child walks up to you today, let's say your child is about 10 years old and walks up to you today and is like, he likes someone in his class and he wants her to be his girlfriend, how would you handle this conversation? How would you just shut him down, or would you encourage the child, or would you help him understand or try to understand what exactly this child is going through at that point and see if that is what's best for it? How did he interpret what he's going through to mean that he wants to get involved with the opposite gender and things like that? So like, I think these are conversations that we need to understand ourselves and parent, and we need to be matured about when we are engaging with our children, with our words. And it also begs the question of giving the children some form of responsibility, because when you start having this question, it's not just about telling the child what to do and how to do it or how best to go about channeling these feelings. Also understanding from the child's perspective that, okay, this is how I'm feeling, this is why I'm feeling this way, or this is why the world is feeling this way, and this is why I translate it to mean this for me. How best can I, like, do you, like, basically, like, how do you understand that? How do you manage those circumstances or things that pop up? And lastly, thank you for the notification. Let me just round up. And also, like, lastly on the thoughts is also like, I'm basically bringing all this together from chapter 1 to the end of the book. Is also talking about not just the parents and the disciplines around the possible blinding realities and lasting possibilities. It's also talking about how we as like a community of people, like basically as how we as the Ummah understand these problems and the growing concern right in our faces. We've seen the trends on people becoming basically people keeping their chastity to marriage, and the trend is on a rising decline year in year out. But also we have to understand that these are no things that we cannot just globalize these issues. We have to really understand what is going on, what is causing this trend, and basically we as Muslims be the best versions of how in managing this situation. And the idea is simple, right? If everyone is taking responsibility of being a better parent to their word, then you can understand that it changes. Like you can have the expectations that every family is doing the right thing in helping their wards process these emotions and helping them understand the principalities about chastity, about keeping their basically being chased till marriage, or till marriage, and understanding the trivialities around it. And then you can expect that other families are also doing the same, and Allah, maybe we can see new changes in our community and in our way on how we process these emotions and how our words react to the realities that we're currently facing. Because to be honest, this is a very sexual world as it is now. It's a very revealing world, and we hope to see the best in all. We want to be the best in all version of it. And also we should remember that on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, we are going to be asked about how our children lived. So we have to understand the responsibility that comes to that, if you are open to be a parent or if you already are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Muhammad. So I would like to say a big jazakumullah khairan to my panelists in person of Habib Lawal, person of Simbiat, Muhammad Abdul Qadri, Muhammad Aliu, and the last person, Aisha Adebayo. Just to round off from here, my colleagues and I have been able to summarize a book of about 279 pages. So for the benefit of those that were not here before now, I would just like to give you the content in case you want to go ahead to read up, right? So there are 4 parts in this book. One is the Tales of Mystery and Why My Heart Bleeds. The second is Teenage Love. The third is Puberty, Adolescence, and the New Truth. Then the fourth is Sex, a Blinding Reality of the 21st Century. Then the fifth is Sex Education. How effective is the acclaimed solution? That's part 1. Then part 2 is 5 Lasting Possibilities. That was a whole lot to talk about. Then the next, which is part 3, then we talked about dealing with people's emotions, young people's emotions rather, and also a light talk on marriage. Then part 4, which was the concluding chapter, talked about stumbling the barrier of early marriage, the social support words for youth, advice for parents, and epilogue, my final thoughts, which is all summarized, which is all written by Ridwanullah Abimbola, who will be coming up in the next few minutes to give us a few quotes or a few thoughts on the concept of these stories, and that will be anchored by a new person, but Abdul Basit Abdul Salam. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Omoni, for that. Yeah, thank you very much for leading this team, and I must say you've done quite a whole lot. Reviewing the, I am sure that we all picked one or two or three things, right, and like it is use those lessons. So right now, we're going to stage a discussion with him. I discovered that we introduced properly, so I'll be reading a bit of his citation, and I'll be reading a bit of his citation. Ridwan Abimbola is a celebrated writer, teacher, youth mentor, coach, and social educator. Born into a family of teachers, Ridwan has an inborn talent for teaching and impacting, which makes him a favorite of hundreds of students and mentees. Through his Genius and Intelligence Academy, he has trained over 500 youth in academic intelligence and personal development. He has also developed and delivered custom learning packages on life intelligence and comprehensive puberty education to schools and community. He is a member of the International Adolescent Health Association. After years of interacting with young people, Donula has distilled his experience into a research-based treatise on a most neglected topic of untold social impact. His vision for blending reality is that it becomes a community project with massive impacts across the global community. As part of this brave effort, he is creating a digital comprehensive puberty education package that will address the growing needs of young people without corrupting their mind or values. Ridwan Abimbola holds a BA, Bachelor of Arts degree in Islamic Studies from the prestigious University of Ilorin, better by far, a diploma in Islam and Contemporary Issues from Islamic Online University IOU, a certificate in Global Adolescent Health from the University of Melbourne, Australia, and a postgraduate diploma in education from the University of First Choice and the Nation's Pride, University of Lagos. So, welcome on stage, Mr. Ridwan Abimbola. Kindly, I was going to ask that you show your video so that we'll see the great author.
Astaghfirullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. We are so pleased to have you here today. And like I mentioned earlier, this is going to be our first book, our first author's chat in NGM.
No.
And
Wow.
we'll be starting with you.
Oh,
That's a great one, I must say.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I'd like to begin by saying a big thank you to everyone who was reviewed the book. I actually learned a lot myself listening to the reviewers speak. And alhamdulillah, it's sort of a dream come true that what you've spent years doing is being appreciated, even though the intent was never for it to be appreciated, rather for it to make some changes within society. And walillah alhamd, I'm happy that's happening, and that the NGM is also making history for being the platform that's holding the first review for the book. And I am optimistic that subsequently there will be greater platforms to have something similar. So while I'm making history with the NGM is making history with me. So alhamdulillah, it's a win-win for both parties. Jazakumullah khairan.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much. And like you have said, that this book is actually a community project. It's a project for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We are happy to be part of those that will be in the project.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. I don't know if you have a copy of the book with you.
Definitely, I have my own here.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So, to start with, I don't know if you would be willing to read your favorite part of the book for us. Just 1 or 2 minutes. We want to hear the book in the author's voice.
Wow, that's going to be a big task. My favorite part of the book. Wow, I have so many favorite parts in the book, and all right, okay, let me go to the last part of the book, the epilogue. I think I have there's something interesting there. All right. Um, so I want to read from page 274. Blinding realities, answering the bots. At different stages of this project, I felt dissuaded to continue with my initial intention to write a book that would challenge present assumptions about and solutions to adolescent sexuality and the many variables around it. On the one hand, I felt these realities were not hidden. If they were genuinely present, the Muslim community should have concluded discussions around them and come up with lasting solutions instead of waiting for a treatise to be published at the beginning of the decade of the 21st century. On the other hand, I also realized that I might have unconsciously overblown this discourse to attract cheap sympathy. I have told true life stories of Robo, Muna, Zana, and Lina. The next question is, do these stories represent the reality of the majority of our girls? How many of the 16 million girls who get pregnant unpremeditated are likely to be Muslims? How many babies are born out of wedlock to Muslim teens? Could they be so statistically significant that the global Muslim community is alarmed? These are genuine doubts, and here are my responses. Blinding realities does not seek to exaggerate present realities. Truly, that some Muslim boys and girls are caught in illicit relations does not mean that all Muslim youths are guilty of that. In the case of dating, however, this is the norm and not the exception. Meanwhile, dating is indisputably prohibited. Equally, that some Australian preteens are addicted to porn does not mean other young boys across the continent are porn struck. It would be unfair to overgeneralize the reality of some people to the rest of the world. Of course, we know unmarried brothers and sisters in their mid to late 20s who are chaste. We only don't know how many there are. Nevertheless, experience has shown that these modest concerns will not get any better or stay modest forever if we do not take action. The 1960s saw the invention of oral contraception, but with decent immediate consequences. 43% of American women had only one sex partner before marriage in the 1970s, while 21% married as virgins. By the next decade, only 17% married as virgins. The rate continued to fall to 14%, 12%, and 5% in the 1990s, 2000s, and 2010s, respectively. Today, the repercussions of oral contraception are flying all around. Tomorrow, the aftermath of the blind realities will haunt our peace. The day after tomorrow, the impact will be too big to contain. Intelligence, they say, solves problems, whereas wisdom averts them. We still have the little time to be wise before our intelligence falls flat on its face. We have to look ahead and prepare, lest we look back and regret. History is taught for lessons, not for memories alone. Prevention is always better than cure, always wiser, and always cheaper. I hope that suffices.
Wow. Yeah, that's so great. And there's this kind of thing that when the author of the book is reading his book himself, you would hear the tone of writing. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. And that will take me to my first question, if you permit me. So the first question is, can you share some insights into the inspiration behind your book and what exactly motivated you to write about this, ageless social vices that affect young people during their transition to puberty? Of course, you've said it in the book, and we want you to also share more insights to us here.
Thanks for that brilliant question. You see, I like to tell people that writing Blinding Realities was and is and will never be about being an author. It's about making a change in society. When I started the book, like I showed in the part of the book, at some point I felt, hey, these things will not get better, so just let them be. Even though what prompted the book was my interaction with a friend of mine, the 7th of July, 2017, where he shared with me some things that parents do to their young people over love and marriage. And while some are normal, some were actually preposterous. They were ridiculous. They were extreme. On that same occasion, he shared experiences of brothers and sisters who are doing untold things behind the scene. Now, I could see a contrast between the two pictures. Those who are trying to do something right, society is scolding them, we're knocking them. But those who are doing what is bad, we are rubbing them on the back because they are doing it out of sight. Now, I felt, hey, this is not right. This is a big hypocrisy. And somehow I felt, hey, I should be the one to correct it. That urge, that feeling, that rush of passion. So I left to the library. Meanwhile, I had concluded my plans for my future career. I was looking forward to a career in journalism because I trained as a journalist in school. And when I started that project, I started to have deep interest in it. And like I said in the book, I lost interest at some point until Ronaldo happened. And trust me, Ronaldo gave the energy to get the book to its completion. When I gave the book to her, to Ronaldo, on the 26th of April, 2023, I felt that there was a burden that was lifted off my shoulders. Because there is this saying that al-Muslimun ala uqudihim, that Muslims. Sorry, I'm saying this because this is made of Muslims. We Muslims we are known by our words. We stand by our words. So I made a promise to her that I was going to correct things, and I had to fulfill that promise. Even though at some point it felt, hey, what have you gotten yourself into? So at first it was about being the change, and this hadith that whoever sees something wrong should try to change it with his hands. If he's not able to, he should try to change it with his tongue. If he's not able to, then with his heart, and that is the weakest form of iman. So my training as a graduate of Islamic studies, as a student of knowledge, is that when I see something wrong in society, we should try to make corrections. We shouldn't say, yeah, this is how we met it. We should leave it like that. No. You have to be that change you wish to see in the world. And there is this saying that if there is a book you read and the book does not exist, then you should write that book. So these things came together, coupled with my experience with Lord, and I keep emphasizing on that. Love is one of the strongest emotions that Allah has created. So because Allah is so dear to me, I found it difficult to do away with that hurt. And the fact that cases of that kept on appearing before me. There was a point in time I thought, hey, why is everything happening around me? Am I the only one in the world? Why am I seeing this and this all of the time? And perhaps it was meant to be a signal, a jolt to rise that duty. So that was why I felt, okay, if this has hurted people in the past and it continues to hurt people in the present, then something must be done about it. So that's basically the motivation to want to correct this ageless vices. Thanks for that question, if I've answered.
Yes. Thank you very much for answering. And I must say that we could see through the book, a lot of all of these things. And in fact, you mentioned how everything happening to you around that period, even at the time you stopped writing the book, but then you still keep getting a reminder. You just have a mission to finish this. That was so nice. So I want to ask, I want our participants too would like to ask some questions. So I want them to just start preparing their questions. But before that comes in, let me ask another question, and that is, what impact do you hope? What impact do you hope that your book will have on readers, particularly young individuals, and who may be dealing with these social vices? Yes.
Thanks for that question. Well, let me start by saying that Blinding Realities is meant to be a trilogy. A trilogy is a book of 3 parts, and this is the prequel, the first part of the series. And what I intend to have at the end of this whole series, if Allah spares my life to be alive to accomplish this, or with this alone, is that I observe that the greatest concerns that young people have at puberty around loving and living. You want to find someone to love with your heart, and you want to find a means of sustenance. So if we are able to address these concerns, then mashallah, their lives will be interesting and perfect. Now, what I intend to say subsequently is that fewer people are having emotional heartbreak. People are having successful marriages. There is a significant reduction in the rates of teen premarital sex, pregnancy, abortion, out of wedlock birth, and addiction. I want to see families that are more understanding, that are more warm and open to communication. I want to see healthier teenagers out there. I want to see that my generation, because trust me, as much as this book is for our parents, it's for us too, because we are climbing that stage. And like I stated in the second chapter of the book, that if we are not careful, we are likely going to fall into the same mistake that our parents fell into. And I brought this phenomena of generational forgetting and unethical amnesia, a situation whereby having climbed to that adulthood stage, old people forget how hard it was to be young and the realities that were present in their time, and they begin to say, "Yeah, these young people of this age, they are so corrupt. The world is so spoiled." Whereas this is not new. All these vices are not new. Like our fathers would say, "You beat die or so we inherited it from them. So I want to see that my generation, we are correcting some of these mistakes that our parents made, and we are doing things better. Of course, we live in end times, but as tough as things are, some people will succeed. There'll be some strangers that will succeed this tempest. I want to see that myself and my people, Muslims most especially, actually, among those who succeed this Tommy time. So that's actually what I look forward to. Jazakumullah khair.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I'm that you could achieve, all of that and more. Thank you very much. So
before you begin to ask that questions, I want to say a few things so that people don't repeat those things. I want to appreciate those who review the book once again. I don't know if everyone read the entire content of the book or they picked the portions they were meant to review, because I could see some misunderstandings, misconceptions around some of the things I mentioned. When Aisha was speaking, she said that I presented sex education as a solution. I actually did not do that. What I did in chapter 5 of the book was to like Omani said, the book is in 4 parts. The first part of the book addresses the problems, the roots of these problems, and the existing solutions. So in chapter 5 of the book, I discussed the existing solutions, what people have tried, what societies have tried to provide a solution to these challenges, and how some of these solutions are failed. That was where I talked about sex education. I used the word the touted sex education. And I talked about contraception and the flaws in this approaches. And I brought data to show that even though the world is touting and vaunting contraception as a lasting solution, we can still see increasing numbers of teen pregnancy. So I did not bring this as solutions. Rather, I brought them as solutions that have been preferred, that have been offered, and I tried to examine the efficacy of this solutions, the same as contraception. And also I picked something from what Muhammad Abdul Qadir said, that there are no rules of engagement. What I actually think what he meant to say was, or what he intended to say was, that you don't control how people have emotions, because Rasul said that there is no cure for 2 people who are in love except marriage. And there is a popular saying in among Arabs that your love for a thing blinds you, it blindfolds you, and it deafens you to that thing. So in Islam, there are rules of engagement, and I tried to mention some of these rules where I discussed that if single education is not possible, what are the things we can do moving forward? And of course, I talked about blocking the means and the different ways we can begin to block the means to these vices. So that's just a few observations I have regarding what the reviewer said concerning the book. Thank you so much. So I can take the questions now. Jazakumullah khair.
All right. Thank you very much for that clarification. We really appreciate that. So, in a part of your book, I hope this won't be a contradiction also, but then in a part of your book that I read, where you talked about early marriage, of course, it was not really
All right.
a direct go ahead for early marriage, and it was not a stopping you from going to early marriage. So, I want to know your stand. They will tell if people say that just stay one place so that we know where to stone you. So I want to ask, as you've asked in your book,
All right.
how early should early be, considering our present? So I want a straight answer that you from your own mind want to give to us.
Okay. The straight answer to that question is that there is no straight answer. So let me say this in addition to that. You see, life is not black and white, and our realities are different. It is absolutely difficult, if not impossible, to fix some things because you are not me and I am not you. We have different experiences, different desires, different needs. Like I said, I think was it Muhammad Abdul Qadir that made that point that we have different categories of people. He said that some people will not even think about marriage until they've completed that PhD. So now, if you say that this is how early it should be, for those people, you are shortchanging them. So instead, if it was so easy, if it was so simple to say that, okay, people should be married by this time, I wouldn't have spent 6 years writing this book. I could have just done that maybe under 15 minutes, but it's not possible. It's not possible. The synopsis I wrote for the book previously, before I changed it to this one, because the previous one was a bit more technical, I said that people desire simple answers to complex problems. And these simple answers are always almost wrong. I had that from Professor Barnes Susan. Now, when you discuss this among Muslims, that okay, there is high rate of fornication in society, people are doing this, what the average person tells you is, yeah, early marriage, right? So, but not everyone can marry early. Do you understand? Not everyone can marry early. In fact, like I noted in chapter 10 of the book, I think, if care is not taken, early marriage is going to create more problems than solve. Because a lot of things have to be in place before you can start talking about early marriage. You are talking about early marriage for people that are dematured. I talked about dematurity, how society has unwittingly, inadvertently dematured young people. A lot of the time when you see an old person, let me say maybe a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old who's acting immaturely, it is not that they are immature. They have been dematured because by that time, Abdullah ibn Umar, anhu, about 14, he was already participating in battles. Abdullah ibn Abbas was about 13 when Prophet Salam died. So these folks were already imams of the community at that age. Now, what is a 13-year-old doing today? And you're talking about marriage for a 13-year-old? Because, and in fact, when this hadith of Ya Ma'shar Shabab, who young people, whoever is able among you to marry should get married. One of those who reported the hadith was Abdullah ibn Umar. And he said, we were very young and we had nothing when the hadith was said to us. And remember, I said Abdullah ibn Umar was about 13 years when Rasulullah died. Now, imagine that message given to a 13-year-old. A 14-year-old who could bear weapons. Can we do that in our times? So it is difficult. In fact, it is impossible to say that this is how early marriage should be. That is why everyone should read this book. Don't just read some part of the book. Read it to understand the peculiarities in that will pop up, that will spring up in these conversations. So I can't say, hey, I don't want to go and get married. No. In fact, as parents, do you have to know what your child is going through, how old they are, who are these people? So everyone requires a unique solution. So I hope I'm not taking too much time to answer that question. So everyone should look at their peculiarities, their situations, and go for marriage when they think it is right. So there is no time to say this is when it should happen, but we should let it happen the right time by considering some of the things I said in this book. Thank you, Jazakumullah khair. I have answered that question, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much for that salient answer. And I must add that everybody is running at their own different pace, and
Yeah, exactly.
we we just need to know, you know yourself best, and you know what when you are very much capable.
Exactly.
So thank you very much. I would open the floor for questions from the participants if they have any to ask.
Yeah, sorry, one question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Omoni, where you go marry?
Guy. So I think part of the in reviewing the book, person mentioned that you don't have to ask people when they will marry, like the author opined. So stop pressurizing on money, I beg.
Thank you.
Just
Thank
leave
you.
it. So do we have anybody that wants to ask a real question now? The author is here. This is an opportunity to, engage him and ask him, our questions. So my own final question for you, sir. Okay, yeah, Omoni, you have your hands up, please. Omoni,
I
ask your
appreciate if
question.
Mustafa Odusi goes before me. Thank you.
Okay, Mustafa. Brother Mustafa. Kindly unmute yourself and ask your question, sir.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Basi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clear.
All right, Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Ridwan. It's
Wa
been a
alaikum
great
salam
session
wa rahmatullah, my honored brother.
for me and everyone else here. So my question is, we've heard some of the important things for us to do. I've been trying to improve. I think for me, it's sex education and some other things that has to do with getting married at the right time in Islam. But I think there are some things that is still affecting this kind of messages. Number one is social media. Another thing is technology. So it's
Okay.
one thing for you to put this kind of messages out there, and it's another thing for people to use them right. And the people who are really preferring these messages for, I think it's not just our generation, it's the next generation, yeah. But their exposure level, the impact of social media. How do you think we can contain them from getting exposed to something we don't want them to get exposed to? I don't know if you understand my question.
Well, I do understand that question, and I am sorry to break your heart. I don't think that is possible. Actually, we we are heading to a generation where, or a time where, control is becoming very difficult. I came across one interesting piece of article while I was doing my research. So the person chronicled the history of love and marriage from, I think, about the 14th or 13th century, and they projected into the future and said that we're going to a point where people's spouses will be suggested by algorithm. you know, because everything about you is on the internet. The internet understands, AI understands how you think, what your preferences are, and they can actually say, okay, this is someone that's going to match your preferences. So we really are moving into an era of very low control, which makes it really difficult to have something to do about that. But that notwithstanding, the first thing is parenting is actually a very difficult thing. It's very easy to say, yeah, parents should do this, parents should do that. Yeah, and until you are in that shoes, you know how difficult it is to be a parent. We have to catch them young. We have to begin that at a very early stage, and we have to incorporate some principles of authoritative parenting. Like, everyone holds a mobile phone today. Even a girl or a boy in JSS1 or JS2 or even primary 5 has a mobile phone, which I think there may be no need for that, honestly. So these are ways to caution them. Also, there are parental restrictions on the television that you can do on YouTube. So you can even do that on the internet. I think I brought some examples where I discussed. Oh, sorry, I removed that part of the book. So there are ways we can adopt technology to prevent our children from the advances of technology. So we need to look into these solutions at that time and to implement them. So there are so many ways to do that right now. Like I said, we may decide not to give phones to our children until they've attained some age. And of course, we tell them, we teach them how to use the phone and the things to do. And of course, I talk about taqwa. It's actually a very good thing to do. So when we score 90% on taqwa rubric, then every other thing becomes easy. You understand. So of course, taqwa does not mean that you won't watch pornography. Yeah, no, of course, it doesn't mean that. So, but it means it's going to help prepare the child for the right growth, and coupled with the right support, the right environment, the right restrictions, we can achieve that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. And Mo, do you still want to go with your question? And this will be the last question for the day.
I'm only for me.
You can go on, please. Thank you.
Please do what you need to do and stop stressing me.
Was that supposed to be your question? I think Muhammad wants to go.
Muhammad Tajuddin, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Mine is not actually a question. It's more sort of like I don't know, suggestion or kind of like I just want to put it out there. So I don't know if the author is going to be there to correct me. So what I think our society today needs is, if I can remember correctly in the Surah, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, did da'wah for the Sahabas for like 13 years, if I'm correct about the years. So I mean, if we could adopt this kind of a situation with our children to like let's put them in the ways of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and the Messenger, all contents that we're showing them, all the things that we're going to do, let's put it into them. Let's put taqwa into them, when they are at the right age. No, it doesn't mean that they don't go out there in the world. They should go to the world, and then when they come back, let your home be Islamatized. I don't know. So I'm just kind of like it's just like some thought that came into me when I read the book or when I listened to the reviews on the book. So this is how way to make up the society that we want to live in.
Yeah, thank you very much for that beautiful addition. And Mubarak also said in the chat box that education is still very much more effective when you enlighten your child. Take it upon yourself to instill the proper and ideal Islamic knowledge and training to your children, so that they would be safe. They would know that these things are actually evil when they see it themselves. So yeah, I think that will be all for today because of our time constraints. And I would like to invite our grand mentor, Engineer Nasir Giwa, to give the closing remark. I really want to appreciate you, sir, Mr. Ridwanullah, for writing this book. And like I said earlier, it is definitely a very well researched book. And I'm surprised at how much effort you put into all the research, and does not make it entirely from the Islamic point of view. There's actually some research from secular scholars, and that even made it more rich and more commanding and authoritative. Thank you very much for writing the book, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you abundantly. So I would hand over now to our grand mentor, Engineer Nasir Giwa, to give us the closing remarks, sir. Over to you, Daddy.
Thank you very much, Abdul Basit. Thank you so much. I have to thank you most especially and the book review team. Most especially, we have to thank our reviewers for today. They've done excellent job. It's not easy to review a book in the presence of the writer of the book, and you can see the difference. It's here to make correction of. So that's so interesting. Ridwan Allah, I must congratulate you. If we have in this platform people who have read 100 books in a year, 100 books in a year, thereabouts. Abdul Basit is one of them. They read a lot, and if he can commend your book, then it's real coming from the bottom of his heart. So he's not just saying it because you are here. So
thank you.
So, and again, your book and yourself, you are the first author to be so invited to the platform. So I congratulate you for that as well.
Thank you so much.
So again, there's nothing for me to add or say. Well reviewed, and you are here yourself. So it's thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
Yeah, my pleasure, sir.
I have one special news though. I don't know. Everything today is special, and therefore I thought it's the right moment for us to also have your membership on the platform special, because usually it goes through a process, but yours is different, and we are making it differently. For you, so I want to welcome you to the platform as a mentee in the platform as well. So welcome, So you're going to be joining a community of talents, full of talents, and I'm sure your membership will add we have further enriched the discussion within the platform itself and development within the platform. So welcome, and thank you again to our reviewers today. Jazakumullah khairan.
Thank you so much. Jazakumullah khairan, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Daddy, for that, for giving us the opportunity to have Mr. Ridwanullah on NGM. It's a really great one.
So Ridwan, you are father to the numbers of Ridwan. Maybe you don't know how. I don't know how many numbers. The thing is that everybody writes their name as Ridwan. There are only two of you that write your name as Ridwanullah.
Yeah. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. I'm happy to be here. Jazakumullah khairan. I saw a question the other time that can the book be shipped? For those who are not in Nigeria, of course, the book is available on Amazon. I have pasted the link on the in the chat section, so they can get there. So there is one thing I say to everyone who reads the book and they find it beneficial. I tell them that this is a message that should pass across. If you find this book worthwhile, please don't let it stop with you. Recommend for friends and family, share with people so that they can also be a part of this change. Because until you change and I change and the next person does, we will not see anything happen differently in our society. I want to appreciate everyone, especially Daddy, for this platform. In fact, it was the very first time we met. I said after my presentation at Light, I said, Irwan, yeah, we're having you on NGM, and I said, well, it's an honor. It's really an honor to be here. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much to everyone for having me, and thanks to senior colleagues on the NGM platform. I am happy to be a part of this great family, and I hope to of course contribute richly to the platform to moving forward, inshallah. Now, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Welcome, Ridwan.
Thank you very much.